Question number 4, the Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, does he stand by his statement that, quotes, "We are a government that thinks getting results is what's really important"?
The Honourable BillEnglish.
Mr Speaker, yes, particularly when you look at the progress we've made. We inherited an economy that had been in recession for a year, forecasts of never-ending deficits, ever-rising government debt, record net international liabilities approaching 85%, and a near-record current account deficit of 8% of GDP. Despite many difficulties since, all of these have improved.
The Honourable David Parker.
As part of the better public services targets he announced yesterday, did he give the Treasury targets and milestones for wage growth, overseas debt reduction or export growth?
The Honourable BillEnglish.
Mr Speaker, those measures of those are made every day. The accountability for economic management is crystal clear and occurs every time there's new data becomes available, and the member knows that because he comments on it regularly.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable David Parker.
My question was whether he had given the Treasury targets, not what the historical figures are.
The member's point is absolutely correct. He asked a dead straight question. He asked whether or not the Treasury had been given targets for those matters. The Honourable BillEnglish.
No.
The Honourable David Parker.
As part of the better public service targets he announced yesterday, did he give the Treasury targets for making New Zealand's superannuation sustainable?
The Honourable BillEnglish.
Well, Mr Singer, it's pretty. If the member actually read the results that were published yesterday, he'd see that it doesn't include those targets.
Order. The question was it wasn't a loaded question. It was a reasonable question, and therefore the questioner shouldn't be abused. The questioner asked whether the Treasury had been given targets for sustainability of superannuation. The Honourable BillEnglish. Order. The Honourable BillEnglish to answer the question.
Well, Mr Speaker, the government published the results for the public services yesterday, and the suggestions the member is making are not on that list. If he read it, he'd know that.
The Honourable David Parker.
In the 4 years approximately he's been in government, what targets has he set pursuant to his promises to close the wage gap with Australia, and have those targets, if any, been met?
The Honourable BillEnglish.
Well, Mr Speaker, as the member will know, the government set a target by means of the 2025 task force of closing the gap with Australia. And along the way, as we've discussed in here a number of times, the net after-tax wage gap has closed slightly with Australia.
Question number 5, Materia Today.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.